After helping Sarah with gun training and practice for 20 minutes, Zeke said, "I think that's good for now. It's getting dark and it certainly is getting colder." He wanted to be spending the rest of the night by the fire with his girlfriend. "Good," Sarah said as she lowered the gun. "My arms are getting tired, and it's freezing out here." She and Zeke went back inside towards the ski lodge, but Zeke stopped. He could have sworn he saw something. "Hang on," Zeke said. He squinted his eyes and looked at the side of the building. He started to go towards it for a better look, but he couldn't see anything. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked. I think I saw something," Zeke said. He continued to walk to the side of the building. He had his bow out and ready to pull back the arrow. "We should go get the adults," Sarah said, as she ran over to join him. Zeke shook his head. "We need to figure out what it is first," Zeke said. "Don't worry, we can handle it. If it's a walker, and if it's a person, we'll have an element of surprise. Just let me take the shot." They walked to the corner of the eye to see a woman peering through the glass of the window of the ski lodge. She didn't appear to be armed. She had red hair and had gaunt features. She wore a leather vest with a thick, long-sleeved shirt underneath, a pair of tight jeans, and a pair of boots. "Bonnie?" Sarah said. Zeke groaned. She just blew his cover. The woman looked over the two teenagers and eyes widened. "Sarah?" the woman said. "What are you doing out here?" Sarah asked. "Are you on the run from Carver like us?" "Yes, sweetie. I need your help. Vince is hurt real bad. I came up here hoping to find someone in the ski lodge and hoping that person was a doctor," Bonnie said. "What happened?" Sarah asked. He got impaled on the rod and it went straight through. Wyatt and I were able to yank him off of it, and now he's bleeding out. He needs a doctor," Bonnie said. Bonnie, I can't. My dad hasn't taught me all that much," Sarah said. "Sarah, please. Anyone who has experience can help. I know that you almost as much as your dad. You've watched him stitch wounds before. That's all we need," Bonnie said. Zeke wasn't quite sure what to say or do. He didn't want to let someone else die who just friend to Sarah, but he knew that Carver and his people were out looking for him. There were only a big question in his mind. You were with Carver, but you said you had ran away just like Sarah and her group." Bonnie nodded. "That's right. Please, we need to hurry," Bonnie said. Something didn't feel right to Zeke. She appeared to be anxious, which she interpreted in two ways. It was her telling the truth and wanting to get back with Vince, with someone who had an idea of how to stitch a wound, or she was lying and she was still with Carver. But it wouldn't take more sense to get Carlos, who was a qualified doctor, with years of experience, over Sarah, who was still his apprentice? It would take 4 minutes just to get inside and get help. "Vince can die. Sarah, please, you're the best we got," Bonnie said. I'm sorry, Bonnie, but I'm not. Let me go get my dad. He knows everything about this," Sarah said. She turned to run to the entrance of the ski lodge. Zeke turned back to see Bonnie pulled out a handgun. He didn't even know she was armed. She had it concealed somewhere. "Sarah, stop!" Bonnie said. Sarah turned back with eyes wide. "But Bonnie, what are you doing?" Bonnie shook her head and she said, "I'm sorry, sweetie. The last thing I wanted to do is get you mixed up all in this. But now I don't have a choice. You're coming with me." Sarah huffed before shakily raising her handgun and aimed it at Bonnie. Zeke's eyes widened. He ran over to grab the gun from her. "What are you doing?" Sarah said with a shocked look on his face. "Killing a person is different from killing a walker," Zeke said. "You'll never become the same once you've taken someone's life. And if that person has always done you wrong..." He thought about the first person he's ever killed was his estranged father, who would have killed his little brother if he hadn't stepped in. He may have deserved it, but Zeke wasn't the same person that day since. Sarah looked down with a frown. He knew he was right. "Weapons on the ground," Bonnie said. Zeke placed his bow and quiver full of arrows on the ground and with Sarah's gun. Then he drew out his knife and stabbed it to the ground. Hoping that the others would soon happen to be sticking the knife up the ground. "Come on," Bonnie ordered. He gestured towards the woods. Zeke huffed before he got to the woods. Sarah joined alongside him in his hands. "I'm so sorry," said Bonnie. "I never wanted to be this way." She did sound remorseful, But that didn't matter. She was taking them to the inevitable death. It didn't take a genius to realize that Carver didn't care about Zeke, Sarah, or Genevieve. He didn't even know if he was going to survive this encounter. Zeke could see a small campfire up ahead. No doubt it was Carver and his people. It didn't take long until they reached a clearing and were greeted by Carver and the other two men. "What the fuck is this?" one of the men snapped. Bonnie ignored them and turned them to Carver. "I'm sorry, Bill, I got caught, but I had no choice but to bring them here." "Good job, Bonnie. You can't do a frickin' right mission. The fuck you we brought out here anyway," the man snapped. "Easy, Troy. We'll figure something out, right, Bill?" the other man said. Carver went over to Zeke and Sarah. He looked at them for a couple of seconds before a smile formed on his face. He turned to Bonnie and said, "We can make this work. You did good," Carver said. Bonnie and the other man were surprised while Troy seemed annoyed. "How are we going to make this work?" Troy inquired. "They're just a couple of snot-nosed brats." "True, but they're vulnerable to their people, and we can use that," Carver said. "Bill, hold on. You're not going to hurt them, right?" Bonnie said with a look of horror in her eyes. "That all depends on the actions of the people," Carver said. He turned to Troy and he said, "Tie them up." He then turned back to Bonnie. "You found them at the ski lodge?" Bonnie was hesitant, but she nodded in response. "Good. Lead the way." Zeke looked over to Sarah. They were both frightened by this current situation. For all they knew, this could be their last night. Luke went over to Clementine and her family. Rebecca was in the process of getting Genevieve to sleep by giving the toddler a bottle. Meanwhile, Alvin had an arm around Clementine. "Hey, I need to talk to you," Luke whispered to Clementine. Clementine nodded and walked away from where her mom and dad and baby sister were, and they walked over to the tables. Luke said, "Listen, I understand that Kenny was a friend at one point, but you're still with us, right? We're all still worried that you'll go with him since, well, Rebecca and Alvin haven't been paying much attention up to you until recent, and I haven't been for you either. I spend most of my time with Zeke." "Luke, I'm happy where I'm at. I'll always be that annoying little sister that keeps bugging you. It's my job. Besides, I'm happy with Rebecca and Alvin as my parents. I love them and I love Genevieve. She's like my baby sister I've always wanted. I've been babied and coddled since the day I was born. I enjoyed it, but I need the same room to breathe every once in a while," Clementine said. "Seriously, you guys need to stop worrying about me. My mind's made up. You're stuck with me." Luke smiled and he said, "Wouldn't have it any other way, kiddo. I promise we'll spend some more time together as soon as we get Carver off our backs." "Sounds good," Clementine said as she returned the smile. "Anyway, have you seen Zeke or Sarah lately? They went outside for gun training, but I haven't seen them since," Luke said. Clementine's smile faded and she shook her head. "Damn, that can't be good," Luke said. "Carlos is starting to get worried. I went out there to look around, but I couldn't find them. I figured they were here somewhere." "Kissing?" Clementine said with a disgusted look on her face. "Let's hope so," Luke said. "Otherwise they're missing." Clementine then shook her head. "That's gross," Clementine said. Luke scoffed and he said, "Wait till you're Sarah's age. You might be singing a different tune." "I won't. Daddy says I'm not allowed to date until I'm 18, Clementine said. "Alvin's already laying down the law, huh? Good man," Luke said. "Anyway, go ahead and try to find them." "Okay," Clementine said. She and Luke went separate ways and tried to search the other two teenagers within the ski lodge. After searching for a couple of minutes, Clementine went to one of the rooms and saw Nick with a bottle of whiskey in his hand, while he was surrounded by other bottles. "What do you want, kid?" Nick muttered. His voice was slurred and breath was foul. He was drunk. "I'm looking for Zeke and Sarah," Clementine said. "Have you seen them?" "Nope," Nick muttered, before he took another swig of the whiskey. "You're drunk again, aren't you?" Clementine said. "Why don't you just leave me alone? You know I don't like you," Nick muttered. "Because I was in the same spot as you at one point," Clementine said. "I lost everyone. No family, no friends, nothing." "We're nothing alike," Nick muttered. Clementine nodded her head and she said, "You're right, but you, Zeke, are alike." Nick groaned and he said, "He hates me. Can't say I blame him, no." "No, he doesn't, Nick. Zeke was in a terrible place. His mom abandoned him and his dad was just mean to him. just like your dad was mean to you. He lost the only one person he ever loved, but he didn't give up on life and didn't completely give up on humanity. He may have lost a couple of friends along the way, but look where he's at now. He's dating my best friend. He's got us as friends. It's not easy to get back up when you've lost everything, but don't you give up. You might find some happiness in life, Clementine explained. Nick wanted to argue with the girl, but he knew that she was right. He sent a smile towards Clementine and said, "Thanks, Clem." He got up and made his way back over towards the door. "I guess you're right. If you and Zeke can be happy with this shithole world, I guess I can do, too." Clementine smiled and nodded her head. "To me, help me and Luke find Sarah and Zeke. We're not sure where we're at." "All right," Nick said. He walked away from the girl, wobbling back and forth. She heard a scoff from behind as Nick reached the stairs and started to climb down them. She turned back to see Kenny. "Honestly, were these people that you're looking after you?" Kenny muttered. "What a bunch of morons." "They're good people, Kenny. I wouldn't be alive without their help," Clementine said. "You just need to get to know them." "Darling, I don't want to get to know them. I'm here to give you the alternative. I've been thinking about tying the knot with Sarita. And if we do that, well, we've been thinking about having a child. Maybe you," Kenny said. Clementine's eyes widened as she said, "I'm sorry, Kenny, but no. I'm happy with Alvin and Rebecca as my parents, thank you." "Darling, can you at least think about it? You know what I just want what's best for you," Kenny said, as he squatted down to be eye level with Clementine. "I know you do, Kenny. That's what you made a great dad for Duck," Clementine said. Kenny looked down at the frown upon hearing his son's name. "Oh, I miss him, Clem," Kenny said with tears in his eyes. "I know you do. I miss him too, but replacing him with me won't work. I'm different from Duck," Clementine said. She also had tears in her eyes. I'm not trying to replace him with you, Clem. I just want you as my child," Kenny said. "Why me? Why do you want me? Zeke's an orphan. Genevieve is most likely an orphan since we arrived. Why don't you want either of them?" Clementine asked. Kenny pondered the girl's question, but he couldn't answer it. "You want me to adopt me because I remind you of Duck? And that isn't fair to either of us. I know it's hard, but you have to think about what you really want." Kenny looked up to Clementine and smiled. "Thanks, Clem." He stood back up. Clementine nodded back and she said, "We need some help finding Zeke and Sarah. Luke can't find them." "All right," Kenny said as he wiped his tears. "I'll go search around." "Kenny?" Sarita said. Kenny turned around to see his girlfriend. She had a huge smile on his face. "Hey, hun, what's up? I haven't seen you this happy since we found those Christmas decorations," Kenny said as he walked up and hugged her. Sarita returned and separated the hug from the man. "I'm pregnant," Sarita said. Kenny's eyes widened while Clementine's smile turned into a huge grin. You're going to have a baby?" Clementine exclaimed. Sarita chuckled and she said, "Yes, Kenny and I are going to have a baby." "How long have you known about this?" Kenny said. He was still shocked. "Just now," Sarita said. "Congratulations, you're going to be a dad." Kenny smiled before he hugged his girlfriend again. Clementine smiled at the scene in front of her. She knew this would help Kenny. He didn't need her. He needed another chance of being a father and husband, and now he had that chance.